year at Halloween Hell in Evansville, we were up at the top, so I couldn't really tell who was who at the
Yep.
announcers table and all that. But I'm pretty sure you dressed up like Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner.
Yes. Yeah. So every year at Halloween Hill, especially on commentary, when I was doing commentary, I like to have some sort of weird costume. Everyone's got some sort of costume they do for Halloween Hill. That's kind of the theme of the show. Me not being a wrestler, at least not anymore, um, I don't need to be taken seriously. I don't need
Yeah.
to. So 2 years now I've done Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, got the chainmail, got the beard dye. Just one of my favorite people to watch in the business, not just because of in-ring, but man, he was so unpredictable, especially in that late WCW run.
Oh, for
Um,
sure, man.
I've done Thor, which I used to do a lot back in
Mm.
college whenever the Avengers movies were coming out. I did Fat Thor one year. I dressed up as a one of the wrestlers on the roster one year, just whatever I can do. There was one year I did a sexy cat costume just
I've seen
because.
that picture.
Yeah, yeah,
I've
I,
seen
I
it.
had
Yeah.
just well, I had just graduated college at the time, and every year in college, that was like the go-to girls costume that you would see on campus. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, paint some
Yeah.
whiskers on, get
Yeah.
get a good-looking outfit and a tail and stuff. So I was like, yeah, why not? I'll just do it too.
It's an awesome idea. And yeah, I've seen that picture and all that. And
Well, and I wasn't doing commentary at that time, and I kind of did it just for the live crowd. So the crowd there saw me dressed as the cat. But if you watch the episode on YouTube, I don't show up on the show until Avispo's tag team partner no shows the tag match. So I show up with the tag belts dressed as a cat in the entryway in this very serious moment, like, oh, he's not here, he's
yeah.
his tag partner, and the commentators are like, oh, I guess he's dressed as a cat.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. And that's the Scott Steiner. You said you loved watching Scott Steiner, and I did too. His promos are, I don't want to say legendary, but definitely
No.
memorable.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And,
just to tee off and in the crowd, and it
yeah.
was so great to watch.
In WCW, every time he put his foot on that bottom rope and leaned on the top rope, you knew something was about to go down, and
Yeah.
he's about to say stuff he doesn't even know what he's gonna say whenever he starts talking. I feel like he's
There's no
along for the
way.
ride as much as we are. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you go back to him and DDP when they had their
Yeah.
big rival, his promos are so good, and it's
The,
so.
yeah.
And of course, a lot of it you're not going to get away with today. I mean, that's kind of
No.
the constant. But man, yeah, I was really. It's pretty funny to watch you dress up as Scott Steiner at Evansville.
Thank you.
So you said you were in the ring. You did the announce stuff. What was it that kind of got you away from being in ring and into the announcers?
Yeah, so when I started wrestling, I came in as me and Tyler Hawkins grew up together.
Okay.
And we came in as a tag team, and probably I trained for about a year. Probably in our third match, I did this Hurricane Rana thing to the outside to Ray Waddell. And when I landed, I was like, oh, something's not right. And I went to stand up and I couldn't, and realized that I had broken my left femur.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Completely across, like clean break, cracked it down the side into my knee, everything like that. So I'm laying there, the adrenaline's hitting, I'm cussing up a storm.
Sure.
And especially at that time, we were considered a family friendly show. So there's a fan cam video of me out there laying on the ground, just saying every 4-letter word I can think of, and then apologizing to the kids that are watching me on the front row.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going, don't tell your parents you heard this here. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, so that match ends in a DQ. Once everyone kind of calls an audible, we get to the back. I go to the local hospital and had to have emergency surgery the next morning to have a steel rod put in my leg and all this other stuff. And with that, they discovered like some arthritis in my hips and stuff. And I was like, man, I want to do this, but there's so many other ways I can be involved. And
Sure.
the doctor told me, like, yeah, you're doing this high impact physical activity. You probably aren't going to be able to wrestle anymore.
Mhm.
Just because, you know, that happened on that Hurricane Rana, but that could have happened like just taking a move a slightly wrong way. So, you know,
Right.
I got a lot of mess ups in my hips and stuff like that. And I mean, it still sucks. Like, and when it rains too hard, I can feel the
Oh,
rod.
yeah,
Like,
dude.
you know,
Yeah.
I'm having issues right now getting up steps just because of my knee issues and stuff.
Yeah.
But um, I remember talking to Chris Waddell after the surgery, and wrestling was something that I was kind of trying to keep separate from my professional life. And in my professional life, by trade, I'm a video editor, broadcast, television, everything like that. So we were starting this show called WWA Hysteria.
Mhm.
And at the time, our editors were the commentators. Um, and they did an okay job, but Lyle and Joe are morning radio DJs and
Sure.
commentators for roller derby
Yeah.
and stuff. They're not video editors.
Yeah.
Um, so I took that over and started taking up roles on screen. I was general manager for a while. I was commentator for a while, and then you know, I just took over Hysteria, gave it a whole facelift. I've taken over all the video editing aside from promos; those are shot by someone else on site. But like video packages, and I set us up an entrance screen and edit all the entrance videos and things like that. So I take part in that in production and just really wherever they need help.
And see, that's one of the things, and I've mentioned to a lot of the other people I've talked to about WWA who are involved with it. It is an indie promotion. I mean, it is what it is.
Mhm. Right,
But
right, right.
but you guys, you're right there. There's
Mhm.
definite separation between what you guys do and what all these other indie promotions do. Like, to me, you guys are the template. You're the
Oh, well,
way
thank
your
you, thank
the
you.
way your videos are, the way your production styles are, the shows themselves. I mean, of course, I've only been to the Evansville shows, but those are
Right,
massive
yeah, yeah,
shows for indie
yeah,
shows. And
yeah, for sure.
so what you guys do and seeing what your hand is in it, dude, you guys are doing great. Especially you, if you're the editor and messing with
Thank
all
you,
the stuff like that, it's really good stuff. And I think you guys should be very proud of what you do. And
thank you. The way I came into the company too was, I mean, I had always been interested in professional wrestling.
mhm,
But for my senior project at Western, I had to do some sort of documentary or some sort of production. And I was like, oh, I'll just focus on a local wrestling promotion and found the WWA. So I
yeah,
came in. The first thing I did was a full documentary on the place.
that's pretty
And
cool.
from there, you know, I had mentioned every once in a while wanting to get involved with some sort of, excuse me, some sort of professional wrestling. I mean, me and Tyler Hawkins grew up together watching it and things like that. And so we were invited by Chris, both me and him, because I had him helping me out with the documentary, um, to try out. And what you're seeing now is a larger scale of what I was doing growing up, because the way I even got into video editing was I would take GIFs and clips from LimeWire and everything like that and make entrance videos for my pro wrestling action figures.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's awesome. That's pretty good.
I would put them on you know what a PSP, the
Yeah. Yeah, man.
so I would load them all on there, and that would be my entrance video
Yeah,
place
that's
for the ramp.
great.
And
That's so
so I'm
good.
just, yeah, and so that's how I got into video editing in the first place. And then from then on, it just became a professional thing, you know,
Yeah.
taking whatever opportunities I could. And so what you're seeing now is pretty much just a larger version of me playing with my action figures, more or
Yeah.
less.
Well, I mean, that's a really great
Yep.
transition or kind of a sidestep what you're doing growing up to what you're doing now. That's awesome. That's a really cool
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
And a great shout out to LimeWire from back in the day too.
Yeah.
I don't know if
That's
anybody
where I
caught that one.
saw, yeah, that's where I saw most of like my pro wrestling growing up, because you know I really got into wrestling when I was younger, and then when LimeWire came along, I mean, I was watching All Japan, I was watching, you know, Punk's entire Ring of Honor run,
Mhm.
I was and all this other stuff. While I mean there was good stuff on TV, but when I was in high school, they were in the PG era, and that was kind of, you know, we would
Yeah.
guest hosts every week and stuff. You could fall out of love with it pretty quick if you weren't careful. And so I was just on LimeWire downloading viruses into my parents' computers and
Yeah,
shutting
loaded
them
with it,
down.
dude.
Yeah,
Just just load it down. You got your video you wanted, whatever.
right,
Oh man, that's what. See, that's the. So my we didn't have that. I'm
right.
quite so like my high school years were. I would probably say well, I graduated in '03, so that was probably Ruthless Aggression somewhere in there.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, to be able to go to LimeWire and pick out stuff from across the world,
Yeah,
that's such a cool thing. And I don't think people like fans today really understand. I'm not going to pull the old man, you don't know how good you got it speech,
right.
but you really don't know how good you got it, you know?
Yeah,
Because,
it's even crazier nowadays because I was kind of on the tail end of like, I mean, if I had to rely on tape trading and stuff, there's no way I would have. I mean, I'm in middle high school. Like, where am I even gonna
yeah,
get
I
into
had
that?
no clue that was a thing when I was a
Yeah,
kid.
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
because I hear about it now and you hear about other people like Conrad Thompson is one who talks about it a lot. He was a big tape
Yeah.
trader back in the day. And I was just like, man, if I think back to then, I had no clue. I didn't know. You
No.
know, I'm just
Yeah.
watching pro wrestling on TV. I think this is it. You know, I didn't know there was other
Right.
stuff. So, oh man, that's so awesome. But yeah, the whole PSP thing and everything, it's such I can't get over that. What an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And you know, I grew up in a town of probably 600 or something,
Okay.
and the Attitude Era had really just ended whenever I was getting into, you know, or higher up elementary school, middle school and stuff. There weren't wrestling fans. I didn't really talk about it or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So there was, you know, I didn't really start being social about pro wrestling until you know, I had met Tyler and we hung out and realized that we had both watched that stuff. I had another friend and that was really into it and stuff. And so we kind of became a group. Whereas now, I mean, you can find there's a subreddit for everything.
Sure.
There's
Yeah.
some sort of discussion going on. But no, I was just sitting in my room with this PSP and wrestling action figures and getting it going. I had made a wrestling ring out of a big Lego board and
Oh
made the
man.
turnbuckles out of Lego posts with like laundry clothesline for the ropes
Sure.
and things like that. So yeah, it was very DIY.
That's still, man. That's still so cool, though. I mean, what you know? I mean, as a kid, how would you even, would you think to
Yeah,
do that? I mean, it's just kind of that's
that's
so
what
awesome.
happens when you're an only child. You just have all this time, like
Yeah,
just sitting around building stuff, and you
yeah.
don't have a sibling there to make fun of you and get you ready for the real world.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah. I have an older sister, so yeah,
mhm.
I was prepared for the world
Right.
outside. Oh, dude. So are you still like you said you do a lot of the editing, and I saw you at
Mhm.
Evansville. You still really involved as far as going into the shows, or do you kind of work it in when you can, or do they just
I'm
kind of send
kind
you the
of
stuff?
well, especially right now. We just had another child. So as far
Congratulations, dude.
as thank you, thank you. As far as traveling and stuff, especially since we just lost our Evansville venue, I
Mm-hmm.
was already just working Evansville because with editing the shows, I mean, they take a while, and our YouTube channel, you know, is always behind the live shows by a pretty
Yeah,
fair bit.
yeah.
So we were doing one full show a month on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and then within that show we're recapping big events from the other shows.
Okay,
um so with Evansville, you know, I live in Evansville, so like I was there working them and doing commentary and stuff.
mm-hmm.
Now I so the entire process really is we shoot on all the cameras at what's going to be a full hysteria on YouTube. They load all the footage onto a hard drive, and then someone who's coming back to Evansville after show brings me the hard drive, and then I just edit everything as I can. And then entrance videos, like I always try to stay on top of those, try to come up with some sort of new concept because I like to make the entrance videos really reflect the character, maybe colors and stuff
Sure.
like that. So every week nearly now we have some that I transfer back to them on site. But yeah, right now I'm stepping away from commentary because the Hysteria episodes aren't in Evansville.
Right. Right.
But I'm still doing all the post work. So if there's ever any recaps or anything, I liken it to Joey Styles when they were doing ECW Hardcore TV. You had
Sure.
all these
Yeah.
interstitials where, you know, Joey Styles, it's live, but he's
Right.
standing in front of a flag with the ECW logo saying,
Yeah.
like, hey, here's what happened at this show. Here's what happened at this show. That's what I'm doing here. I'm at this setup right here.
Yeah.
I've got my microphone. I say, you know, hey, Clay Williams won the Ultimate Opportunity contract. Here's some footage. Now back to ringside. And we let our commentary team take over.
And that's
Things
a
like
pretty
that.
good way to do it. I like the way that you guys do that.
Thank you. It's easier to do that, and it lets us get, I mean, Hysteria is behind anyway, but if I had to do, if every single episode was a Hysteria like that, me being a one, I'd say 2-man team, because, you know, there's a separate audio guy.
Right.
I mean, we'd be 6 months behind on shows, and it would just keep getting
Yeah.
more and more behind. So
And when you said you guys do kind of a drop off, I almost imagine it like if somebody sits at a park bench, they leave the leave the hard drive.
Someone in a big trench coat with about 8 hard drives just opening it up.
Yeah.
Which one would you like?
Or set down the same exact briefcase and all that stuff, and somebody picks up the wrong one and all that stuff.
we have a roster member who, I don't know how kayfabe breaking we need to be, but they live one street over from me. So whenever they're sending the hard drive back, they just drop it with him, and I'll say, hey, I'll come get it, and I drop it back in his mailbox and everything. So
that's, well, you brought up kayfabe. We can talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
I've hit on it a little bit. I would love for kayfabe to come back.
Yeah.
In general. Just maybe not to the extreme of The Undertaker having to wear the same black t-shirt for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, I get these people have lives. That's great that they have lives. But it's, I still, man, don't ride in the same car. Don't eat at the same restaurants. I would love for that to come back.
It's tough. On our level, it's especially tough because a lot, like, we're regular dudes who are working.
Sure.
You know, you see, it would be very tough to have, you know, someone being this big monster badass, and then you go to the gas station and they're working behind the counter. So you got to keep that element of being, like, one thing I've always brought up on commentary, I try not to overplay it, but within kayfabe, it's always brought up that me and Tyler Hawkins are best friends. And the main reason I try to keep that in is because, you know, we're always hanging out, we're always together and stuff like that. So if a photo gets posted to social media of us, I don't want us to be hating each other for some reason.
And I totally understand that. And I think most fans do understand that at the indie level, you know.
At a higher level, especially now that I'm a parent, I do appreciate that I can look at my child as they grow up and say, you know, hey, this is jacked up theater. Like, don't go out and try to tombstone pile drive your friend on the on the you know, this is a TV show. But part of that also is because I wasn't raised in an era where kayfabe like that was kept to.
Yeah, sure.
My dad used to live in Biloxi, Mississippi, and he still talks about how he would go to a show and he saw Hacksaw Butch Reed versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the Battle of the Hacksaws.
Oh, I bet that was awesome.
Well, and he talks about how Butch Reed had a broken hand and busted the cast open on Hacksaw Jim Duggan, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there that night, I'm sure it nearly started a riot or something.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's crazy. So that's my thing, is I feel like I have a jaded opinion on kayfabe just because I haven't been around for it being stronger.
Sure. And I mean, that's what, and I don't mean for it to come back as, like, I mean, you hear the stories of, like, Piper got stabbed one time.
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff like that. I'm not saying it's got to come back to that level.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, it's fun. I think I talked to Tony Evans and maybe a few other guys about this too. it just needs to be um like contracts or secrets. We don't need to know, man. You
No,
know,
no, not at all. Not at all.
I
Even the
still,
surprises.
I still want the magic to be there.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and
it
I
was
know
a
that,
little different when it was harder to find. Like
yeah,
back in the day,
yeah,
if someone like Dave Meltzer said something like, "Oh yeah, Undertaker's expected to come back at Backlash," you had to
right.
seek that out to find that.
Yeah,
Now you get
you
on
had to go
Twitter
find,
and
yeah,
it's
right,
ruined.
right.
So
Man, that's, yeah. Kayfabe, I mean, yeah, it's a double edged sword. I think.
yeah,
It surely
it's
is.
it's tough. But I found that in nearly every medium, there's kind of that access. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
you think about Marvel movies,
Yes.
you go on, Twitter or some sort of subreddit or something, they'll say, hey, Chris Evans has a contract to play Captain America for 4 more movies. And it's like,
Right.
oh, well, why do I need to know that
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. It's not just pro wrestling now. It's
Yeah.
all across the board entertainment.
Yeah.
We're getting
It's,
information we shouldn't get, and
yeah.
that's why, I mean, I barely go to the theater anymore
Yeah,
because
exactly.
there's
Exactly.
no point. I mean,
I remember growing up, my mom she was a big soap opera fan. She watched Days of Our Lives every day and stuff like that.
mm,
And in checkout lines, they've got those soap opera digests, and you look
yeah,
at that, and
yeah,
it's like, oh, so and so is going to be leaving the show in November, or
yeah.
like all this other stuff. And I remember at the time being like, man, why would you want to know that?
Right.
And now I
Yeah.
realize that those are just like mom dirt sheets.
It was for
Like,
sure. Yeah, it was. You're absolutely right. I never thought of
yeah,
it in that angle of it. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what that is.
right.
I mean, as a kid going to the grocery store, I was more interested in who found Batboy this week in the
Yeah,
magazines. But
right.
oh, brother, we need to wrap it up. I have had a
Okay.
great time talking about pro wrestling with you on social medias. If you want to give those out, tell people where they can find you.
Oh man, I just deleted my Twitter account. Uh, I
That's why I don't have it
I
either. It's
was
fine.
yeah, there was it was a lot of fun, but I was just like, I need to tone it down a little. I will
Yeah.
say, you can add me on Facebook at Drake Jaxon. I spell it with an X because
Mhm.
I'm, a millennial and X's make everything cooler.
Yeah.
Um, make sure you follow, at WWA is now on Twitter. Facebook.com/WWA is now, as always, where we have upcoming dates and info and promos and stuff like that. We have a Patreon now. Patreon.com/WWA is now, where you can join the Squared Circle Club. We give out bonus footage of at least 3 matches per month, and then there's a weekly podcast with Chris Waddell and Cortland Moore and Munchie. Any entrance videos, I post those early. And then our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WWA is now, there's new content every Monday. So
Awesome, dude. Everybody knows you can find my stuff at Wrestleverse on Instagram, at Wrestleverse on YouTube. And I do have stuff on Spotify. I'm just a little behind. I just need to get it all up there. And that's it, dude. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. I really had a great time.
yeah, thanks for having me. This has been fun.